Philip Rivers' return to the NFL was never supposed to be a long-term solution. It was a calculated gamble, a nostalgia-tinged decision rooted in urgency, leadership, and the hope that experience could stabilize a season drifting off course. Now, just weeks after that comeback began, the Indianapolis Colts have made their final call, and in doing so, they have quietly closed the book on one of the most fascinating late-career experiments the league has seen in years. According to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, the Colts will start rookie quarterback Riley Leonard in Week 18 against the Houston Texans. With Indianapolis officially eliminated from playoff contention, head coach Shane Steichen has decided there is no longer a football or organizational reason to keep the 44-year-old Rivers on the field. The decision is practical, forward-looking, and emotionally final, even if it's not framed that way publicly. In many ways, this ending feels perfectly on brand for Philip Rivers. The comeback itself was one of the most unexpected storylines of the season. Rivers had not taken a meaningful NFL snap in years, and yet when the Colts turned to him out of necessity, he stepped back into the huddle as if time had barely moved. He directed traffic, adjusted protections, barked audibles at the line of scrimmage, and threw the ball with the same fearless aggression that defined his entire career. There was no easing back in. There was no watered-down version of Philip Rivers. What Indianapolis got was the real thing, for better and for worse. Statistically, Rivers held up his end of the bargain. Over 3 starts, he completed 63% of his passes for 544 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Those numbers don't jump off the page in a modern NFL context, but they tell only part of the story. Rivers was decisive, confident, and competitive. He attacked downfield, he trusted his receivers, he showed command of the offense that simply can't be replicated by younger quarterbacks without years of experience. What he didn't get, once again, was help when it mattered most. The Colts went 0-3 in Rivers' 3 starts, a record that feels painfully familiar to anyone who followed his career in San Diego and Los Angeles. Time and time again, Rivers delivered competent or even strong quarterback play, only to watch games slip away due to breakdowns elsewhere. Defensive lapses, missed assignments, poor situational execution, or a general inability to close. This short stint in Indianapolis somehow managed to mirror the defining frustration of his entire NFL journey. That context is important when evaluating why the Colts made this decision now. This is not an indictment of Rivers' ability. It's an acknowledgement of reality. Indianapolis is out of the playoff race. There is nothing left to gain in the standings. Continuing to start a 44-year-old quarterback, no matter how capable or respected, introduces unnecessary risk. One awkward hit, one bad fall, one meaningless injury in a lost season would be impossible to justify. More importantly, the Colts need information. By starting Riley Leonard in Week 18, Indianapolis is signaling that the focus has shifted entirely to the future. Leonard may or may not be the long-term answer at quarterback, but the organization needs live NFL reps to begin answering that question. Practice evaluations and preseason flashes only go so far. There is no substitute for a real game, real pressure, and real defensive schemes designed to exploit a rookie's weaknesses. This is the responsible decision for the franchise, even if it comes at the expense of a story fans were enjoying. For Rivers, the timing is bittersweet. His return was never about money or personal milestones. If anything, it was about competitiveness and legacy. Rivers has always been a throwback quarterback, emotional, fiery, unapologetically intense. He wanted to prove to himself more than anyone else that he could still play at this level. On that front, he succeeded. There was no embarrassment in his performance, no visible decline that screamed, "This doesn't belong." If anything, Rivers reminded people just how much quarterbacks can still control games with intelligence, anticipation, and toughness, even when arm strength is no longer elite. At the same time, the frustration he openly expressed tells its own story. Rivers spoke candidly about how badly he wanted to win, how difficult it was to accept losses late in games, and how draining it felt to relive scenarios he had experienced so many times before. That honesty has always been part of who he is. He never hid behind cliches. He never pretended losses didn't hurt. And that's what makes this ending feel definitive. There is no indication that Rivers will push for another opportunity beyond this season. The Colts' decision to start Leonard in the finale strongly suggests that the organization views Rivers' role as complete. He was a bridge, an emergency stabilizer, a respected veteran presence during a turbulent stretch. He fulfilled that role professionally and effectively. Now, the bridge is no longer needed. From a legacy standpoint, this brief comeback likely helps Rivers more than it hurts him. It reinforces the narrative that he could still play when called upon. It shows adaptability and leadership. It adds another chapter to a career defined by durability, competitiveness, and consistency. Rivers didn't limp out of the league years ago. He walked back in, proved he belonged, and exited on his own terms, even if the wins didn't follow. The Hall of Fame debate will continue, as it always has with Rivers. He lacks the Super Bowl ring that often serves as the final stamp of greatness for quarterbacks. But his cumulative production, longevity, and influence on the position are undeniable. This comeback doesn't change his resume dramatically, but it adds texture. It adds context. It reminds voters that Philip Rivers was never a quarterback who hid when things got difficult. For the Colts, the decision also reflects a broader organizational reality. This season did not go as planned. Injuries, inconsistency, and instability at quarterback forced Indianapolis into reactive decisions rather than proactive ones. Rivers was a response to that chaos, not a long-term vision. With the season now effectively over, the Colts can finally take a breath and start making decisions rooted in strategy instead of survival. Week 18, then, becomes less about the scoreboard and more about evaluation. How does Riley Leonard handle NFL speed? How does he process defenses? How does he respond to adversity? Those answers won't be complete after one game, but they will be invaluable heading into the offseason. As for Philip Rivers, this moment feels like a quiet goodbye. There may not be a press conference announcing retirement. There may not be a ceremonial send-off. That's fitting in a way. Rivers' career was never about spectacle. It was about showing up, competing relentlessly, and trusting that the work would speak for itself. His final NFL snaps may already be behind him, but they came with dignity, competence, and the same fire that defined him for nearly 2 decades. In the end, the Colts' decision isn't just about who starts at quarterback in Week 18. It's about closing one chapter and beginning another. For Indianapolis, the future starts now. For Philip Rivers, the story appears complete. Not perfect, not crowned with championships, but honest, resilient, and unmistakably his. Philip Rivers' return to the NFL was never supposed to be a long-term solution. It was a calculated gamble, a nostalgia-tinged decision rooted in urgency, leadership, and the hope that experience could stabilize a season drifting off course. Now, just weeks after that comeback began, the Indianapolis Colts have made their final call, and in doing so, they have quietly closed the book on one of the most fascinating late-career experiments the league has seen in years. According to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, the Colts will start rookie quarterback Riley Leonard in Week 18 against the Houston Texans. With Indianapolis officially eliminated from playoff contention, head coach Shane Steichen has decided there is no longer a football or organizational reason to keep the 44-year-old Rivers on the field. The decision is practical, forward-looking,